thank you for being here. And thank you
Thank you for
for,
inviting me, Nico.
yeah, we're really, really glad that you're with us. We met at the European Congress for Hematology in Vienna, where you
Yeah,
came to my poster. And since then we
yeah.
kept in contact, and I'm really, really glad that you are here with us. And maybe
Thank you
we
so much.
we start a little bit about yourself, so that you introduce yourself,
Okay,
who you are, where you work, and then we
okay.
go from there. Okay?
Okay, so my name is Abdul Muqtadir Abbasi, and I'm 33 years old. And I was born in Pakistan, in its capital city. It's known as Karachi. And it has like a population of around 22 million. Just my city. It's a big metropolitan, and we have a big population. Um, it's basically along the seashore. So we have a port as well in Karachi, and all of our country's economic activities also through our city. And obviously we have, it's a big city, so big city problems, big city good things, everything is here. Um, I did my schooling here at in St. Patrick's and St. Paul's English High School, which were missionary schools. And then I did my medical school, which is known as Dow Medical College. And this is an old school. Old school means it was like before the independence of Pakistan. It was inaugurated by one of the British. I think he was a governor here or something like that. His name was Dow, so it's Dow Medical College. And then, so it was like 5 year med school, then 1 year of internship, and then I did my 2 years of internal medicine training. After which I had to give an exam which is known as the intermediate module exam, and then I had like 3 years of straight clinical hematology training. After that, obviously, we had to give the exit exam, and that is conducted by a body which is known as the College of Physicians and Surgeons Pakistan. So it's more like on the format of the UK Royal College. We have a similar degree is known as the fellow of the College of Physicians and Surgeons, just like fellow of Royal College. So it's sort of the same format, but unlike the UK, it's not sort of a degree that you can do anytime, or maybe it's a bit different. That is sort of an exit exam. So only after you complete up, like just like the CCT and specialty certificate. So I did that, and then I just went to the Congress in Vienna and also gave my EHA exam, which was a good exam, and sort of it was a nice experience there as well, meeting new people. I think that's it for my education. Yeah.
And how was it that you got into hematology? Was it something you were always interested in, or was it something?
Yes, it's a good question. Basically, in my med school, honestly, very honestly, I had no idea what's basically like everyone is hearing about cardiology, nephrology, pulmonology, hematology is like something very, it's not that rare, but like people are not usually into it.
That was the
So
same for
even,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So even in internship, we had no, I mean, there was no rotation for hematology for me. And we had like 3 months in medicine, then 3 months general surgery. Then I did 3 months of burn surgery as well. And and I did 3 months of nephrology. Interestingly, during my med school, I did two electives. I went to Harvard University for cardiology in my final year, and I went for so plastic and reconstructive surgery at Oxford John Radcliffe Hospital. So just for the sake of getting exposure of different systems and learning and see what my interest is. So after I did my internship, I don't know. I just got into. I found there was a job for a medical officer in one of the institute where I specialized. It's known as the Aga Khan Hospital. It is one of the like JCIA accredited hospital and CAP accredited laboratory. And so at that time, so there was a position in oncology, and I just said, okay, let's see. I had no idea, no experience about it, and I went into it. So I was amazed to see, like, the first time I went there, I just did my internship and I was on call one night as a medical officer. And then I went into, so there were private rooms of the patients, and I went into one of the rooms, and the attendant said that the patient's TLC count is 315,000. So I said, I think you're mistaken. It's not the WBC count, is the platelets. So I had no idea, honestly, of having so much. I mean, you've read in the books, but practically you're not expecting anyone to say like 300,000 WBC counts. But that was like my first hit of what hematology is about. And then, you see then different patients, then a lot of things then you have. So it was my those 6 months of exposure to heme, basically heme malignancies. And from there, I said, no, I think this is something that I should go into, that interests me. The hospital I trained at it was specialized. They have the hematologist is seeing all benign diseases, all malignant diseases, and bone marrow transplant. And so obviously we had adult hematology is separate, peds hematology is separate. They have their own team, their own everything. The ward is separate. Everything is separate. So it's more or less. So if we see the big hospitals, they have proper hematologist seeing. So basically, heme oncologist, and they're seeing benign and malignant hematology, and so there are very few people who are actually, they're very specialized into a particular thing. Like thalassemia is one of the. It's like around 5 to 8% of the population that is affected by thalassemia. So we have some people who are really into like just doing thalassemias, and they're very they're doing a great job. Obviously because they're focused into something. But in general, the hematologists, they are looking at the benign and the malignant, as well as bone marrow transplants. So some people are, yeah, obviously they're focusing more into transplants, so they're going. Although we don't have a recognized training in bone marrow transplant, but like there are hospitals that are doing their own hospital-based trainings for the 1 year or 2 year trainings in bone marrow transplants. So yes, that's about it.
And what is access to transplant like for patients in Pakistan? Is it limited to specific big hospitals? And
yeah, so transplant is so we have like I would say there are private hospitals in the big cities, like Aga Khan Hospital, right? That's a big tertiary care hospital. That's based in Karachi, and it is doing transplants, allo, auto, everything. But it is a private institute, and so you have to have, the patient has to have the amount to bear for the transplant. However, for some people of certain provinces, their governments, if we like prepare a letter for them, and they can apply there and they can get grants for the whole transplant. So so it's like if it's the general cost is like 4 million, like 4 million rupees. So I don't know how to I don't know what the cost in dollars or pounds, but it's like 1 rupee, 200. It's around 200 rupees is to $1. So about 4 million rupees. So the one option is that. The other is there's an institute is also known as Shaukat Khanum Memorial Hospital, and that's a total charity based hospital, and it's also JCIA accredited hospital. They are also doing transplants. They're more mostly focused on pediatric leukemias, because obviously they have good prognosis and everything. So they're not putting people's donors' money into patients who have bad prognosis. That doesn't seem nice, but obviously it's more practical to sort of spend the money at places where you have a better prognosis. And then there are certain institutes that are being run by the armed forces in Pakistan, and they are doing, because they have good amount of money into it. So there's an armed forces institute in one of the cities. It's a big hospital, and they're doing bone marrow transplants and everything. But the problem, it's a sort of a problem, or we can say it's a developing thing in Pakistan. So it's like we only have those in the main cities. So like 4 or 5 main cities of Pakistan, they're doing bone marrow transplants. So people who are living in the peripheries, they have to come to the main cities. They need to have that amount of funding, or maybe they can get it arranged by the governments. But usually those people who need transplant, they usually get a transplant somehow. They get it arranged from the government, or by arranging themselves, and they usually get a transplant. Yeah.
All right. So you pointed out some things we need to ask you about. First of
Yeah.
all, I would like to highlight, so you live in a city with more than 20 million. Is that correct?
Yeah. Around
Okay.
22 million.
22 million. Okay. But there are only like few hospitals providing transplant. Is that also
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay.
I mean, there's no
Just
comparison.
yeah,
There's no ratio. There's
just to
no ratio.
make the comparison complete with European views and how other realities look like. And then
Yeah.
my other question would be because you alluded to the pediatric setting, do you also cover both, like adults and pediatrics, or is that like a separate is that completely separated in your clinical practice?
Usually it's separated, but again, now there are some people, like we in hematology, you have two options in clinical hematology. Either you come with a medicine background, or you come with a pediatric background. So if you have a pediatric background, then you're more comfortable dealing with pediatric patients. To be honest, I'm very uncomfortable dealing with pediatric patients. And we had some of these patients when I used to rotate in the bone marrow transplant. It was, you know it's in adults, we like, every dose is in our memory. We have to be like, Biropenem, this dose. But for child, for every age, for every weight, you have to like calculate each and every dose for each patient, and that gets very difficult. Then in turn, also, that vitals are also very different for different ages. You have different blood pressures, that are hypertension. So I remember patients who are on cyclosporins. We have this in mind that, okay, if this is the blood pressure, the patient is going hypertensive. But in children, the pressures are the ranges are very different. So I don't know, maybe it seems difficult to me as a adult hematologist, but maybe our pediatric hematologist would be better able to tell this. But yes, it's usually different. Like peds people are different. We are different. But sometimes, like in people who are doing transplants, obviously a lot of patients in transplant are pediatrics. So they usually get experience in both of them, and so they're seeing both of them. But with time, when we are getting more hematologists on board, and there are pediatrics also and adults also, so obviously when we have a lot of people, we can usually divide the burden, and give a better care, because obviously a pediatrician would be a better person to do that.
I completely agree to that statement.
So if she can add, if our pediatric hematologist can add about the doses, is it like we feel it that way, or is it you also feel it that way?
No,
Calculating.
it is one of those things, and sometimes you're just like, especially, but I think we just get used to it. So, and then you also, the commonly prescribed things, the dose per kilo or per meter squared is in your head, so it's a bit less. Although you have to get your calculator out, you don't necessarily have to look up things quite so often
Yeah,
when you get used to them all.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
What's it
And
like in terms of access to clinical trials and things? Do you have many patients treated on trials, or?
No, not really. That I think this is something we um, is something challenging for countries like ours. And there are people who are doing these things, but clinical trial, they are very, we had some clinical trials, but they are not as common as we see in Europe or in UK, maybe in the US. Like it's very common, but in our setups we do have trials, but they're very, because we have to go, obviously we have our own different issues and funding issues, like people even can't afford the simple, simple procedures that are very common. So going into a clinical trial and all those things, usually they get very difficult, to be very honest. Yeah.
And the whole system in Pakistan, you said there are private hospitals, hospitals who are funded by the army or the armed forces. So can you structure that a little bit, that we understand? So what does the like healthcare coverage look like in Pakistan?
Okay, so basically, there are government hospitals in general. I'm not talking just about hematology, but in general, we have some government hospitals. But to be very honest, I would not be very happy with going and being get treated there. Um, their lack of facilities, their lack of medicines, there are a lot of issues. With few exceptions, obviously, there are few hospitals, few government hospitals, government run hospitals that are doing a good job. And then there are a lot of alumni that are coming out from different colleges, just like my college, and then they think of building a particular department in a government hospital, and providing the facilities. But I would say it's suboptimal, to be very honest, the facilities in the government hospitals. I mean, I would not want to get treated there, or maybe take my family. But obviously, for people who can't afford, they have people living below poverty line, and those people. So at least they have some sort of facility where they can go in emergency and get treated. Then so basically, if I and then there's no insurance system as such in Pakistan as well. Like, there's no concept of health insurance. And the insurance companies providing with the options of going to different hospitals. So it's basically like, the model is working like on the, like, it's just you have to pay for your own thing. And honestly, that gets difficult a lot of time, because the treatment is getting very expensive day by day. And the people's income, it's not increasing that much. So yes, I would say it's a suboptimal facilities in the government hospitals. And then there are institutes that are being run by, for example, the armed forces. So they're mostly focused on their own communities, and then they're also serving the civilians, but it's limited to a particular aspect. But yes, in terms of getting advancements and everything, because they have a better funding, they usually get into, sort of, they're available to get facilities, have good structures, and introduce different things. So in a way, it's good that at least something is coming in the country by some means. Yeah.
And in
But
terms,
yeah, sure, sorry.
In terms of training, does that take place within the government hospitals, or can you train in any type of hospital?
Okay, as I told you, there's a body. It's the College of Physicians and Surgeons, Pakistan. It's an independent body. It's not a government body, sort of semi-government, but it's mostly it's independent body, and it's looking after all those requirements of the hospitals for starting a training, for adequate supervisors, adequate beds, adequate patient availability, load, everything. So they basically approve hospitals across the board, whether it's government hospitals, armed forces hospitals, private hospitals. They just need to fulfill their requirements of particular beds in the hospital, of having, for example, if there are 3 or 4 supervisors needed or whatever, so if they fulfill the requirement, any hospital can facilitate and start the training as well.
And how about to just maybe go a little step back? So how long does it take you to finish med school? And the other one is, how do you get into med school? Is it very competitive in Pakistan, or?
Yeah, it is competitive. It's like so again, when we come to med schools, which we usually call as medical colleges here, so it's like then again you have private medical college and government medical colleges. So Dow Medical Colleges, for example, is a government medical college, and it's like if you enter into the medical college as on merit. So I was like, when I applied there, it was a competitive exam. There were like thousands of students applying for like 100 seats or 200 or 300 seats. So that is almost like it's very, very cheap. And the government bears the expenses of making you a doctor. And that's something very good and to be appreciated. And then there are private medical colleges they're insanely expensive, but they have also limited seats. So it's competitive, but when you it becomes more competitive when you're thinking of going into a government med school and getting a cheaper um, way out of this, because med school gets very expensive. If it's not government medical college. So yeah, and then it's like 5 years of med school, in which till year 3 you're more mainly focused in your academics, and from year 3, 4, 5, the last 3 years, they're mostly you go in different wards, you get exposure to different like pediatrics, medicine, cardiology, and everything, so like that. So it's like 5 years. After completion of 5 years and you clear your MBBS, you get a provisional license to go through an internship program. That is a 1 year internship that you have to rotate in medicine and surgery, and one of the minors of medicine and surgery as per your requirement or whatever you want. And after you complete that 1 year of internship, then you get a full license to practice. Yeah.
And what about when we talk about access? So you said those who need a transplant may get one. You obviously have no CAR-T, I imagine. What about other treatments? Do you also have like a large generic system, or how does it work when we let's focus on hematology?
Okay, so when you come to let me just talk about the CAR T cell therapy, as I also discussed with you when I was there in Vienna. So basically, at one of the institutes which I talked about, Armed Forces Institute in Pakistan, they have sent a couple of people to UK and other places for training, and maybe they'll be starting in the next 2 or 3 years when they have those people trained. But obviously, that would be just one hospital in the whole country that would be starting. But obviously, we'd start from somewhere. But that's a good thing that they've all started and thinking about those things, and they have the funding and they can send people. So it's good to start from somewhere. So a patient who needs a transplant, and he doesn't have money for that. So for example, what in trained, that we used to make a detailed summary of the patient, and then we ask them to, for example, go to their government bodies, the local government bodies, and apply there for some sort of a grant. So there are provinces where so we have like 5 provinces, 5 different administrative divisions in Pakistan. So there's some of them, they basically give you the whole grant for the transplant. But I did not actually go through any of the patient that was unable to get money for the transplant. But I suppose there would be, certainly there would be people who would not be able to, or at the first instance, when they listen of the whole cost and everything, they even decide at that point in time that they won't be going for a transplant. But when you, obviously when you compare it with the whole thing, like the whole population and the whole load and everything, certainly things would be compromised.
And what
Maybe not.
about other treatments like TKIs, for instance,
Yeah.
venetoclax?
Yeah. So TKI, for example, in CML, the last institute I was practicing in is known as the Indus Hospital, and it's a charity-based hospital. So it was giving, for example, imatinib free of cost to the patients. And whatever the dose, whatever the drug, if the patient's CML, I used to start a lot of patients on imatinib there. And then, for example, so we have, if you talk about CML, so we are usually dealing with imatinib and nilotinib. The other drugs are available, but they're not readily available. And then you have to like go through different means and get it arranged from some, other neighboring country. And then obviously there are people who arrange medicines for it. But the readily available drugs are imatinib and nilotinib. And in imatinib, so there's one hospital that's doing that, but that's just one hospital again who's providing that nilotinib. But then there are the companies like GSK and all those different companies. They are also providing like at 40 or 50% discounted prices. So if the patient is non-affording, we connect them to the official representatives of the companies, and they go there, provide the documents necessary to show that they cannot afford it, and they give like 40-50% discount. Still, it's like it's not that easy. Even after 40-50% discount, it's not that easy. And it's very painful when I am dealing with such patients, and a lot of patients who are, for example, resistant to imatinib, and they're coming to you that they can't afford nilotinib, and I'm just treating them on hydroxyurea. So it gets very like, you feel so helpless about it. You can't do anything. And obviously it's not like 2 months, 3 months course that you can maybe arrange it for them. It's like they have to take for years and maybe for their lifetime. So, and then there are people who are maybe in some rural areas who maybe even die because of some very simple basic diseases due to lack of facility. So you would be thinking that investing this amount on providing maybe Tisagna for this patients, I can help like 100 people there out, and get their basic facilities. So sometimes, to be very honest, practicing in Pakistan gets very difficult in terms that it's emotionally very challenging when I mean, even like giving someone enoxaparin. I've dealt with like both populations. Like the institution I was trained in, the Ahan Hospital, we used to cater the sort of elite of our country. And the Indus Hospital is a charity-based hospital. It's like the extreme poor people. And so it's very difficult to practice actually clinic hematology in people who are not affording. It's very difficult. And a lot of times like you have to help them out of your own pocket, and get simple drugs, providing them, okay, just buy it. And I remember one of my patients who was like, he was a young kid, like 18 years. He had portal vein thrombosis, and he had like his Apple antibodies were strongly positive. I couldn't give dokes for him, and then he had some issues with his factor 7 as well, so I couldn't give him warfarin as well. So the only option was enoxaparin, and then even he couldn't afford enoxaparin. Obviously, so it's like for for the next 3 months maybe. So there are a lot of situations where it gets difficult. So it's like it's very there's no standard thing in Pakistan. Somewhere there are some hospitals that are providing you with a lot of things. I like IVIG is very expensive. It's like in a million or 2 million rupees in Pakistan, and I got it from for one of my ITP patients from my hospital free of cost. He had to go some surgery. He was a CP child basically. So at one place you can even get in a million rupees thing in an instance for free. So there's no standard, no healthcare system as such, but there at different places you have different opportunities. There are good things and bad things, but I would say it's something developing. And anyways, I think clinical hematology and hematology oncology as adults, it is not easy in any country. It's a lot of expense. It is a lot of money you have to invest, and in the end, you don't have a good prognosis. That's the worst thing of all. Like if you can, if you, for example, in AML patients, what's the prognosis? Even after you're doing everything, it's like 40%. So so I think this is we have in general hematology has its own challenges, and especially in developing countries like mine, I think we have come a lot. We have done a lot and we have improved a lot. And there are institutes in Pakistan that are doing like this. Institute is known as National Institute of Cardiovascular Diseases. It's catering thousands of patients with free stents, free pacemakers, free different devices, full cabbages, and everything. They're doing it. So a lot of things are coming up, but I would say that, and to be honest, I would not sort of accuse anyone for it, but hematology is something, it is difficult to even explain it to someone that you it's difficult to come sort of convince someone to spend a lot of money in something which doesn't have a good prognosis. So the only thing I can talk about maybe for CML patients, they respond very well with TKIs and a lot of other diseases, but or maybe aplastic anemia, getting an ATG, a transplant. I think these are something good. But again, we have some lacking, some good things. It's a mixture basically, and so but it's a lot of time as a practicing physician when you especially when you're catering the poor patients, it gets difficult. But just I just wanted to it was in my mind. I wanted to share one patient with you. It's not just like it's a habit of people, talking about lack of facilities, and we don't have that, we don't have this. But I think I just wanted to share because I want to motivate people, you have to like leave your comfort zone, and you have to go out of the way and do something to sort out things. So there was one when I started, I was just like a fresh graduate from hematology, and I joined this hospital. And there was one child, she was 14 years. Now again, I don't deal pediatrics, but this child was referred to me by the rheumatologist in the hospital, which I shared on the Twitter group as well. So she was a 14 years old child, pancytopenias every other like few months, responding very well to steroids. The time the steroids are stopped, she went into bad pancytopenias, fever, blah blah blah. And so she was initially being dealt by pediatric hematologists and pediatric oncologists. Then they did not, they couldn't find something relevant because we don't have the molecular test available in general. NGS has come in, but there are certain companies that are taking samples and sending it to maybe China or US and getting the test done. But in general, we don't have the NGS facility. So, but obviously, we can send the sample. That's something you have to like go out of the way and do it for the patient. So complaining that we don't have this, we don't have that, you can just take a sample and send it. We have aeroplane ships to take the sample to other place, and it can get tested. So that patient was being basically managed in last 2 years, and they didn't have a diagnosis. The rheumatologist handed over the patient to me, and initially also I was sort of a perplexed when I saw that. I said they have been the case was discussed in US. I don't know how many places that case was discussed in tumor boards and everything. And they didn't have they were suspecting T lymphoproliferative disorder and blah blah blah, everything. So then I discussed on Twitter just to have a different opinions, and you guys all said that we should be looking for HLH in that patient. Although interestingly, like she had like 4 to 5 marrows, and she had no evidence of any evidence of hemophagocytosis. But the overall response of the patient was like she had some immune problem. So then I talked to the administration of my hospital, and I said it's just a $250 test. I want to send this patient sample. And after a lot of documentation and everything, I sent that sample to one of the labs through one of the hospitals to US, and we found out the UNC13D mutation in that patient. And now I have handed over that patient to one of the pediatric bone marrow transplant physician, so to sort of proceed with that patient. But the point over here is just to motivate people to go out of there. If something is not, there's always some way out. A lot of times, which we if there's something not available directly with you, you can just maybe, I mean, I just took help from Twitter, my colleagues at Twitter, and it's you can just talk to different people. The world is out open to you. You can get your lab test done. You can arrange that small amount of money and sort out the problem for those. So I think hopefully with more young blood and more fresh blood, there will be more aggressiveness in handling and sorting out the problems. So that's again another solution to bring out younger blood in all the societies, as you mentioned that day as well. That's another issue.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm always impressed to see how different people are managing different situations, and especially I really like what you said is it's which from a European or let's say rich standpoint would be somehow maybe a bit problematic. But if you say that has a real power to say, okay, well, yeah, there are problems, but let's not focus too much on the problems that exist and just focus on how we solve these problems or how we like make the world a better place just with little steps what we have, right? So I really like that. Maybe two final points. One is before we get to this trainee issue, do you feel, because you alluded to the problems you have, the differences between each hospital and is there also, do you feel the pressure at the moment, because we all live in a like quite an intense period at the moment, and we, at least in Germany, our hospitals, we feel the pressure we maybe never felt before, even during COVID and before that, the most. Do you feel a certain problems getting more intense at the moment with all what's going on in the world?
I think it's more of economic problem. People, when they don't have money in their pocket, it's a big problem. Anyways, because like you have a lot of stresses, like in life, in general you have a lot of stresses, and when you don't have money in your pocket, that's a big stress again. Especially when you have to like support your own education, you have to support your own health, you know so so it's in general a level of frustration and irritability is increased. So I think it's not more of like in the in Pakistani population, and you're most welcome when you come to Pakistan, inshallah. Pakistani people are very lively people, to be honest. That the challenging situations in which we are living, To be honest, I would say if you bring a European in and you want him to stay here for a month, he would go crazy. You know, the traffic and everything.
Mhm.
But we, in general, are very resilient people. All the people, even by living in Pakistan, India, and all those regions, highly populated. You know, and I would say you would call maybe at a lower middle income or something any country, but there are people who are wealthy rich here. They're truly wealthy rich, a lot of them. That's not the majority, but there are a lot of people. And um, there's a lot of philanthropy going on here in Pakistan. People are like, it's not usually projected, but the amount of money that is being spent on charity is like, it's enormous, it's huge. It's like in millions of dollars that are being spent by people. So even when people don't have money, they're spending a lot of it on charity. Then we have, like in Muslims, we have a concept of zakat. It's an obligatory spending that you have to spend your money. Like if you have like a particular amount of money that you have saved for a year, you have to give like 2.5% of that money for the well-being of poor people. And so people who are, they're wealthy, their 2.5% is a lot. 2.5% of their stored wealth. So there's another this aspect of the zakat system that is helping a lot of people, because the industrialists, the big shots in industry, they have a lot of money coming out as zakat. And that is helping again, because it's not very easy to donate something unless you have any motivation in the background, whether you want fame or maybe it's a religious obligation. Then it becomes easy to spend that money amount, or you have some sympathy. There should be something to motivate you. And this is a big blessing for countries like ours, where you have scarcity of wealth in a lot of in a majority of people. So that's some helping out something. But yes, again, that's very true what Niku, you have pointed out, that in general, frustration level in people, irritability in people, it is increased. And it's not just the patients, it's the doctors, and it's globally, if you see that, because especially so you may, like, it may seem sort of philosophical, but that's my observation, that there's a lot of materialism today in this world. And when we see iPhones coming out every new year, and lavish handbags of thousands of dollars, and glasses of thousands of dollars, and everything, it's a lot of it's a consumerism concept in today's world. So I think in general we have a lot of frustration, to earn a big amount. And every other person is in the same line, to be very honest. And the frustration is not just in the patients, it's in the doctors as well. So their own target from sort of, I mean, everyone wants money. That's not something, like, doctors have to go and buy their own things as well. Nobody's giving them free of cost things that they serve people for free. But to the point that you see patients as customers, um, this is something which is I see it incoming, because now hospitals are being run by MBAs from business institutes, coming in and telling the hospitals that this is the way you should tackle the patients, rather than the doctors telling, and deciding the thing. So I think it's overall the thinking of the society that is changing. The world has problems since it's starting. I think it's not something new. We have always had problems since the day one of humans. A lot of problems, and they will never end. There's no end to it. But I think in general, it's I would say that we need to be the change rather than to bring the change. We need to change ourselves. A lot of people, a lot of like juniors, they complain, and every one of you have gone through this process of your seniors maybe insulting you at some point in your training. You're not happy with your supervisors and all those things. That frustration during your training, that's, I think, we don't need to complain. We just need to be the change. When we become mentors, when we become seniors, when we become physicians, be good physicians, be helping ones. be the ones who are good to their juniors, be the ones who are helping for their juniors. So I think this culture of, blaming and crying and everything, it's true to a point, but I think we need to change ourselves, because if we are changing, the world is changing, hopefully.
Well, a very inspirational message. We were going to ask you just to finally finish with what advice you'd give to trainees, but I think you've probably just covered that in everything you've told us so far.
Yeah. So just to add a few more things in training, one thing is, just to list some important points. Keep up to date with you. It's a must have to be with you. Talk with evidence. Talk with data. Don't talk. Don't quote your seniors that this is the right way and this is the wrong way. You should be quoting trials. You should be quoting um, the figures from the research that is happening. Um, Always respect your seniors. I know it's very difficult when you're going through those periods, but I think when you become a senior, then you know the problems you are facing. Like, I was a chief resident at that time, and those of you have been chief residents, it's how difficult it is to manage like a lot of people's problems together, because you cannot make everyone happy. So I would say respect your seniors, but you need to be truthful and tell if something is not right. You should just tell in a respective manner that, okay, I don't agree with this part of yours, but that should be obviously respectful. You shouldn't be like, you shouldn't look like a boss to your senior. And obviously learning. Don't think people as consumers or customers, basically. And when you go through, I had in 2012, I had an ORIF surgery in my arm. I had a car accident. And when I went through that phase of being a patient, then you are in a totally different world. And a few words from a doctor makes a lot of difference. Your tone, your way of talking, your way of speaking, it makes a lot of difference. Just a few words, and the patient feels a totally different way. So I think empathy, sympathy is very important when you're looking at a patient. Consider it as a patient. Consider someone your loved one who is going through the same phase. So you have to have some sort of sympathy, not just thinking of them as objects and subjects of a trial. They're human beings. I think that's it. I think I'll take a lot of time just talking about all those things. But yes, just one message would be the change.
I think that's a final sentence that is perfect,
Yeah.
because
Thank
I think I can speak for Claire that we believe the same. And
you.
we are really, really happy and really, really thankful that we could make this happen.
Thank
And
you so much.
I'm really happy that you came to me in Vienna. And I hope we can establish something bigger together with Pakistan and with other countries as well, to just learn from another and engage and yeah, just be the change, as you said.
I think it's just I'm sorry if I can take just one more minute. I just want to add something. Is it okay?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, go for it.
So, yes, thank you. So I was just saying, like, I've never understood this concept of nationalism, to be very honest. And I don't like, how do you divide humanity between lines? It's something very, it never makes sense to me. Like, we are all humans. When we look at ourselves, we have the same feelings, same attributes, everything is same, but I don't know, it's seeped into us, a lot of it. Our nationalistic, the way of looking to on each other, that this particular person is from that part of the world and everything. I think what I've seen, I've been to different countries and I've seen people and I've seen everything. I mean, we have the same issues, we have the same emotions, we have the same pain for maybe a dying child, or a crying child, or a mother, and everything. I think it's more or less, I think we need to, in being the change, I think the one more thing which is very important is to connect ourselves as humans. And I mean, this part of nationalism and those arbitrary boundaries that we have made to, cut humans into different parts, that should be ending right now. We should talk about humans.
Another perfect final sentence.
Thank you.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I always say that medicine is universal by definition. And even if people tell me that I'm German, I try everything to not be that German. Um, yeah, Abdul, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
And
much. It was nice talking to both of you.
let's build something together. We obviously keep in touch, and
Sure.
we are really, really happy that you made this happen. And thank you again.